Yeah, that guy was he was an Atlanta comic.
You know?
No. I read the video. Segura posted it, and I saw the video, and I was like, oh shit. But apparently the guy wasn't even heckling. We're on, just so you know. The guy wasn't even heckling. No. Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
The guy wasn't even heckling. He was just unhappy with his bill.
What?
Yep.
He
just
should
was
have
unhappy
attacked
with his
the
bill.
manager or whoever set the prices.
Well, I think it's one of those things. I've heard this. Press it slowly and it goes on the side.
I'm sure. I don't know if you've had the same, but I mean, you started out in Florida.
Yeah.
And I've had some interesting. I mean, I've deloused a few, and I got a thing with bullies because I had two older brothers that beat the shit out of me constantly.
Yeah.
And so they were stronger than me, and they really were sadistic torturers in their, let's twist our little brother like a pretzel things. And the one thing they could never top me on was verbally and with the tongue. So I have this talent of being able to push a bully's button.
I have the same talent.
And I have, it's come in very handy in my comedy career.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a video I've got on YouTube, Tom Rhodes crushing a heckler.
For real?
This guy in Scottsdale, Arizona a couple years ago. He says, the guy wishes he was a UFC fighter, and he had like one of those outdated Affliction shirts, and he had like barbed wire tattooed on his left bicep, and a Maori tattoo he didn't understand on his right bicep, and the guy was on drugs. It was they had interrupted the show. I had been on like 40 minutes. I had chose to ignore these people.
Yeah,
and then the guy couldn't be ignored, and then he stands up at the you only see just this part in the video, but I felt like a matador, and this is a bull, and I thought, this guy, I'm going to have to fight this guy.
Yeah.
Or I mean, I like from my older brothers, I know there's a certain combination of words that if you say to a certain type of man, he's got no choice but to punch you in the face.
Yeah, it's almost like you've outwitted him mathematically, and he's like, I don't know how to...
The ignorant bull who just... Yeah. I have no response but violence.
Yep. Yeah, I don't have... I have such a problem with confrontation. It's on the side. Like, yeah. But if you go slow, it pops up there. I have such a problem with confrontation that when I do get to the point where it becomes a confrontation, it goes very badly, very quickly. Like I'm so nice.
Yeah.
And then by the time the crowd's already well past their fucking welcome for this person. I had one of the worst ones. I worked with a guy, Roy Johnson, out of Tampa. We were in Atlanta at the Funny Farm. And Roy is featuring, and a guy's got a Bluetooth headset in for the whole show. And his chick's talking. Roy's at like 25 minutes, and he just decides on his last minute he's going to tear this guy up. Lights up this guy, calls his wife a cunt, and goes, "That's my time," and gets off stage.
Wow.
And they're like, "Oh," and then the host is like, "I don't want any part of this." Ladies and gentlemen, your headliner, Bert Kreischer, brings me out. I heard none of it. And I go, "What's up, man?" I go, "You got your Bluetooth in." Roy had already lit him up for his Bluetooth. And by this time, the guy's like, "Fuck you." And it took off so aggressively. I was like, "Wait, what did I do?" And and he goes, "You don't call her a cunt." I was like, I didn't call anyone a cunt. And then I hear Roy in the back, fuck him. And I'm like, oh my God. It was just one of those like where you stepped in shit. But yeah, apparently that guy didn't have a problem with the comedian, wasn't getting heckled. I think he was drunk and didn't like his bill.
Wow.
But that was scary. With this, and I got to give props to the comedian Steve Brown.
And like, the way he was like jumping back,
dude,
and away from the guy was very skillful.
Very skillful.
Like he wasn't in attack mode; he was in avoid mode.
And he got hit once on the arm. Did you see it?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, I gotta show you. I just started following him on Instagram, so I can pull it up pretty quickly.
Wow! I hope you're following me on Instagram.
Of course I am. You have some of the best posts. Yours aren't ego-driven posts,
right?
It's one of the few accounts where ego is the last thing spoken. Mine's ego's, I think, fucking.
Well, it's funny. Like I'm posting, and the last like 6 months have been incredible for me. Paris, Switzerland,
You're going back to Paris.
I'm going back to Paris in a couple days. I got a show there on the 29th.
At the, don't say it, the Hotel de Louve?
Theater de Louve.
The Theater de Louve.
Beautiful old theater, like 350 seats.
Really?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I can't wait.
Oh, that's awesome.
But also, I was in Shanghai. I went to Mongolia. I went to Tokyo.
I thought about you a lot because I did that tour in. I'm not going to be able to find this fucking thing.
You were in Sydney. I know.
No, did they show his arm? Look at Halston trying to jam me up. No, this is his apology letter. Don't worry about this. Oh, this is the fight.
Here we go.
God damn. Yeah. Oh,
grabs the mic stand. This guy. Yeah, that could have been dangerous,
dude. He could have killed him.
He could have killed him. Good thing that the big heavy metal bottom part fell off when he swung. Otherwise, that could have been murder.
I guess right now is when half of it's gone. Or
but here's the thing: where is the security? Look at this. Nobody. Look, now finally somebody's coming, and I had this. I've had a couple incidents. I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
I remember once years ago at Rooster T. Feathers in Sunnyvale, this like biker guy jumped on stage. He was drunk, and he just took the microphone out of my hand. Hey, I want to tell a joke, God damn it. And like the guy told a joke. It was uncomfortable. He left, and then I was like, at how many stabs in the chest would it have taken for anyone in this club to approach the stage and tell the guy to come off?
Do you want to see security in its finest?
There is. Man,
Watch this. Type in. It's under my YouTube page. It's Chaos in Seattle. This is.
I was just at Phoenix Live and Stand Up Live in Phoenix. I thought they were.
Watch this. You want to see a security guard fucking own a motherfucker?
Wow.
Watch this. So, I'm getting ready to do a toast of some sort, and a fan decides. I just fallen off a waterfall, by the way, the 2 days before. Watch this guy. Fan decides it's his beer on stage that he'd like to drink. Look at that.
Wow.
Fucking hushing
him
off.
That was good.
That was great, right? Is that not great?
That was really good. Yeah, beautiful interception.
Oh, yeah. That guy I don't know what the guy was planning on doing. I think he just wanted to drink the beer, but man, that guy fucking grabbed him and ushered him off stage in a matter of seconds and out the door. There was a fight in Tacoma this weekend at one of my shows. Man, the problem I think I'm running into is that people get so fucked up.
Yeah.
Sometimes on my late shows that they ruin their night of experience.
Yeah.
And you're like, don't do that to yourself. Like, let it be a fun night. Like, don't fucking ruin it. What are do you?
So you think you're bringing out that big heavy boozer now?
I'm bringing a lot of big heavy boozers.
Hey, Bert's a fun guy.
Well, what happens is it's just like
if I do shots, you'll think we're cool.
Yeah, I think
on the same level.
I think they think that I'm like this. I'm going like that. Bert's been drinking since 2 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm going to fucking go as hard as Bert's going to go. And then they get out there and the big problems we have on late shows, not to undersell my late show tickets, but like is people throw up and people get kicked out. They get way too rambunctious. They start interacting like towards the last 15 minutes of my set. I do like an hour 20 on stage. So like during the last 10, 15 minutes, people are like, Tom is fat. Tell me about Tom. What's up with Rogan? What's his new compound like?
Oh, that's terrible.
And you're just like...
Because that was like when the reason Steve Martin stopped performing was people would yell out, I'm a wild and crazy guy, and his catchphrases. And then Chappelle had that problem. After the Chappelle show, people would get all fucked up and go to the show, just yell, I'm rich, bitch.
Yeah.
The catchphrases.
Well, it's people
so
that
you're having that kind of dilemma now.
Not as bad probably as they ever had it, definitely. But yeah, it happened on the Late Show Saturday here. Someone apologized to me in the audience. They were like, well, I'm sorry it got so crazy. And I was like, it's fine. It's totally fine. And it's not like the first 45 minutes I'm doing is smooth sailing, you know? First first 58 minutes, smooth sailing. It's when the machine story, when I'm getting ready to tell the machine story, that shit starts unraveling, and they're like, once they're all yelling the machine, and you're just like, all right, I'm going to tell it. Don't worry.
Something always strange happens when we play this song. That's what Mick Jagger said during Sympathy for the Devil at Altamont.
Oh.
Like the guy had just gotten stabbed in the front.
Something always strange.
Something strange always happens when we play this song. So now it's you go into the machine store.
Oh. And I get not that I mean, like, obviously, for anyone that listens, I don't mind telling the story. I don't have a problem. If anyone wants to hear anything I want to tell,
great story.
I'm fucking in. But there are times where I'll meander in the story and I'll do things to interest myself, and I think people find that a time for like interactive. But it's not that bad. It's not as bad as Chappelle ever was. I remember being on the road with the Tell during the
Insomniac period.
Yeah, and girls would run up on stage and just pull their tits out, and guys would come up on the stage with shots, and you'd just be like, whoa, this isn't even comedy anymore. Like, you're missing opportunity to watch one of the greatest comics do comedy.
Yeah.
And then I think that's why he took a step back and was like, no more Insomniac, no more road. I'm in New York. I've got money. I'll be fine. I don't know. You'd know better than I would.
As far as what, a Tell?
Yeah, I think you know him much better than I know him.
I think it was, I saw just even on the street hanging out with the Tell, people coming up and everywhere, dude, you got to do a shot with me, Dave. It was like everybody, it wasn't just a picture wasn't enough. Now the person has to have a shot with the man, and it was exasperating for him.
You dodged that bullet because you were a partier, but you weren't the guy that like people wanted to watch you speak.
Well, I mean, I think for years I was.
I'm referring to your drinking times.
Well, I mean, I think for years I was the party guy, and
yeah, but no one was like.
I think people. I mean, I always enjoyed hanging out with fans.
That was I think me and you have that shared behavior.
You come to my show and you're my fan. Oh my God! Hey, I'm in your town. I have nothing to do.
Dude,
I'm not married.
That's exactly
And let's hang out all night. And many times people go, you want to come over? I'm like, yeah, why not? But even now I like to hang out with people who are my fans, and it's so easy to affect someone's life for the better.
Yeah.
When someone just loves you, they've been a fan for years. Even just spending 10, 15 minutes talking with them after the show, it means a lot to people. I mean, I remember when I was a fan. And I remember...
Dude, I feel like I'm talking to myself right now.
I remember, and that's the thing. I remember, I always return emails when fans write me, because when I was a teenager, I used to write Eddie Murphy. I used to write David Letterman. And I remember it would have meant the world to me had they written me back.
Yeah.
Just one sentence. Hey, thanks, kid. You're 17. You want to be a comedian. I say, go for it, Tom Rhodes. Or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just like anything.
See, I came at it as a fan too, obviously. I think I was a fan of yours before I was a friend of yours. But I've always was a fan too. I remember the night, and I say this as a smaller thing, but I remember the night I hung out with you at the Bag It In and drank. And I go, and for me, I still don't, that's not lost on me. I won't do shots anymore. I told everyone no more shots.
Good.
Because I was like, this is no purpose in a shot. I don't see the purpose in it. I don't need to be that fucked up. And I'm the one that has to deal with it in the morning. But I go, if you want to hang out, don't buy me a drink. I get them for free. Come grab yourself a drink and post up next to me. I'll talk about whatever. You want to talk about podcasting? I listen to podcasts. You want to talk about comedy? I love comedy. What do you want to talk about? I will totally talk about anything. And to the point where I'm like, where I go, I think it's because I'm a fan first, comic second. I didn't get into comedy going, I have something beautiful to give the world. I think I felt very lucky that I could figure out how to do comedy and figure out how to get laughs. I don't, and I think some people go, no. This was my calling. Leave me alone. I do what I do on stage. I don't want to speak to you, which is totally fine. It's just not my approach.
Do those people exist?
Yeah.
But yeah, like that story when you and I met, and you were like, you want to be a comedian, and I said, If you buy me a drink, I'll tell you everything I know. I mean,
buy me a beer and I'll tell you everything I need to. You need to know about, everything I know about comedy.
Aside from like meeting fans and stuff, like if it's a young comedian,
oh yeah,
who like is a fan, like I would have told you everything I knew had you not bought me the beer. You know?
Yeah. I think that's also. I think Stanhope said that one time. You don't pay for a comedy class. Just find me at a bar. You don't even need to buy me a drink. Just sit next to me.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I love talking about comedy, but I think that's one of those things that that is lost on a lot of younger comedians or maybe people who get successful really quick, really young. They feel like it's almost like I see it as an arrogance sometimes of like, yeah, this is what I do, and then I go, yeah, but you haven't done it that long.
Yeah.
Like I don't know where that comes from.
No, and I hate young arrogant comedians who they think they know it all, and then also they don't watch other comedians.
Yeah.
And especially if you're on the same show with somebody, just out of respect.
Yeah.
You should watch everyone on the bill, see what they're doing. I mean, where do you have to go?
You should watch people. The reason I watch comics is I want to know if I'm writing exactly the same as them or different.
Yeah.
Like it's very helpful. Rogan one time said, "Hey, just so you know, you have a similar joke to this other guy," and then I was like, "Oh, thanks." I was like, they're a little different, but they're close enough where I got to drop it. Thank you. And so I started going like, yeah. So I watched Cigar Special. If I hadn't, I would have delivered within my first 8 minutes of my special one of the punchlines he delivers at like 10 minutes into his special, and I would have been like, "Oh my god!" People would be like, "Oh, he's doing his act." Because we're such good friends.
That's true. I mean, you got to be aware of what people are doing. On Patton Oswalt's new special, he opens with kind of the same thing Mark Maron opened on his thing about Trump and Twitter and like, I'm afraid to look at it and like, oh my God, what's happening?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the exact same joke.
But it's close enough that if it was yours, you'd be like, I'm probably going to drop it.
I wouldn't have opened my special with it if I hadn't seen it. And I think Patton is one of the greatest. I love Patton.
He really is fantastic.
And I love Maron. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But just to say, you know, I like watching young comedians, and I like watching open mic nights, like to know what not to do.
Yeah. One
of the greatest books I ever read is Miles Davis's autobiography.
Yeah.
And he says, it's not important the notes that you play, it's important the notes that you don't play.
Yeah.
So you're going to be up there like doing some hack shit and think, oh my God, this is so brilliant.
Yeah, it's sometimes, and I think another thing people do is they forget that all your ideas come from something else. And so sometimes you have an idea that came straight out of someone else's special and you just forgot that you didn't think of it, and you plug it in, and then you're like, I know you saw that special too. I don't think you stole it, but I think it's parallel thought after you had heard someone. And so I think it's important to kind of go through. I'm going through tomorrow. I'm going to go through and watch a bunch of specials, and just to make sure that the hour I'm working on is different. I think it's also, you know, you're probably one of the best at this, but you write jokes a lot of times, and I could be wrong, and you might see this differently. You write jokes that no one else could write. Does that make sense?
That's the best compliment you could give me.
Like I strive for that. And when I write, I was telling this to this comic I was working with this weekend, and he was like, I don't know, I got this joke about this, and I was like, well, you should really be working on it. He was only 4 years in. I was like, keep writing those jokes. You're gonna have to write those jokes. You're gonna have to go through all those jokes. That's part of the process of learning how to write, learning how to get through this. But I said, try to get to a place. I used you, Stanhope, and Attell's not a good example, because I'm not saying, but Attell runs the risk sometimes. He goes, does anyone have this joke? You don't really run that risk. And I think with my good jokes, I don't run that risk either. Like when my really good material, I go, oh, no one's writing that. I don't think I have to worry about that. It's so authentically me, you know? And I think to go back to what we were saying at the very beginning, when I met you as a fan, it wasn't so much that I loved your stand-up. I did, obviously, but it was that once again, it was like, this is someone who's making it tangible. He was from Florida. Like, I'm from Florida. I didn't think Florida guys could do stand-up. The only other guy I knew from Florida was Todd Barry, and I was like, I can't do what he does. I'm not that guy. But I was like, oh, And then the fact that you gave me time, I was like, I would give someone time. You know, I think that's lost on some comedians where they go,
yeah,
I'm doing things great. Like they'll brag about what the type of joke they write. And you're like, yeah, but anyone can write that joke. You're missing the point of it.
Well, you know who I learned that from? I mean, I think also I've been a nice guy. Which
you've been, I would say you and I are in the same category. I don't think a lot of people have a lot of shit to talk about us. We're just really good guys.
I think being a nice guy goes a really long way in this
really
business.
Does.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that. Is a big factor is in comedy is if people want you around. If you're a fucking asshole and you talk down to people or you're a jerk to the staff or other comedians, the people usually don't want you back.
No.
But Bill Hicks, when I was a young comedian, was always wonderful and had all the time in the world for me to ask him questions. And that always astonished me about Bill Hicks, and one thing that's often not talked about him is how he really loved other comedians. And even if you were a young comedian, he kind of felt like you were in the same fraternity.
Yeah.
And
Joe's like that a lot.
I really respect that above. I mean, I put that right up there with talent. And I hate when you see comedians who don't feel that way. You know?
I think it's so funny because I think when I was younger I was oblivious to it, and then when I was younger I was oblivious. I was happy that anyone would speak to me. Then you get to a place where you're like, you see like younger comics leapfrog you, and you go, oh fuck that guy. Then you get to a place where you're like, oh they're back where they had to start. Everyone gets to the same place. Yeah. We all have the same base. How good your base is determines how good you are as a comic. We're all going to fucking have our 1 year, 2 years where we blow it out of the water, and then we're all going to go right back down. We're going to tour. Our numbers, you're going to get that phone call from your agent. Listen, numbers weren't that great last year. They want to offer you a little less. Are you willing to take it? And you got to go, that's okay. Yeah, this is what I do. I'm rebuilding. And I'm going back to clubs. I did theaters. Now I'm going back to clubs. Oh, okay. I'm going back to B clubs. And I think that some of those people think it'll never happen to them. But I think the older we are in the business, you start going, no, this is the cycle. It's just like with forests. Sometimes they got to burn to the ground to rebuild. You know, Patrice was the one that told me that. He was like, when I got my first deal, he was like, I feel bad for you because you don't know what your base is yet. But when you find it, realize that's just where you should be right now. I was like, I remember going, oh, he's just jealous. And then when all the TV went away, I was like, oh, I should have listened.
I heard Patrice say one time, and his elephant, and I loved Patrice.
Dude.
I got to, at the Edinburgh Festival years ago, I got to share an apartment with Patrice for like 2 weeks.
I would pay money to be a fly on that wall.
It was so great because, you know, he's making fried chicken and all this wonderful food.
Yeah.
And it was really like having a southern kitchen while I was in Scotland. And it was great.
So I shared an apartment with him for a month in Scotland too.
Yeah.
Probably the year before or after, 2 years before or after. And I remember he went shopping and he like bought all this stuff, blood pudding and eggs. He taught me how to make an omelet. But I remember going like, let's go out to eat. And he's like, no. And he would make a meal all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, he was cooking every day.
Yeah.
And, you know, I didn't have to pay for food. It was great. But I heard him say one time about, I don't want millions of fans. I want 100,000 hardcore fans who are going to buy everything I put out and support me. And I was like, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah.
Just to have 100,000 people who love you so much, they'll come and see you when you're in their town. They'll buy your new album.
Yeah. I remember hearing one time you needed 2,500 fans to make a living. They're like, if you have 2,500 fans, 2,500 legit fans, you can make a living as stand-up. And I was like, okay. And then when I wrote my book, I sold like 1,200 copies. I was like, fuck, I can't make a living in stand-up. That first week, I was like...
When did your book come out?
It was a while ago, 2009, maybe 9. No,
I'm trying to. I've been working on a book for like 7 years now, and I want to get it published this year.
Okay, have you talked to Fitzsimmons about it?
No.
Fitzsimmons is probably the best insight I've ever had. I went the route of getting it published. I know the guy that published my book listens to my podcast, Yaniv, great guy, was an amazing guy, amazingly helpful in the process. But ultimately, it's almost like you got to have a hit record in order to make money. But I think the way Fitzsimmons...
people got to know who you are to buy the book.
And it can leapfrog you like Chelsea. Like, it can leapfrog you into the next thing. I think Doug's...
But she had that TV show.
No. Her first book, My Horizontal Life...
Yeah.
was like, came out and no one really bought it. By the way, I'm guessing, so I think I'm knowing the story. I don't know if I really know the story. No one really bought it. But Leno loved her, so he had her on like all the time, and she would promote the book through Leno. And she had a few good appearances, and all of a sudden it became a bestseller. And then that leapfrogged her. So like, there is something to be said for having like a traditional publisher, but Fitzsimmons went the other publishing route, and I think he made a lot more money on it. And so,
what do you mean the other publishing route?
Well, I think he self-published it and owned all of it. Like, he owned all of the, like, so I think he made more money, and he did an audiobook, which I would have, if I had been smart, if I had self-published it or not signed a deal for the audiobook, I would have made a lot of money. My audiobook outsold Corolla's audiobook. It was like one of the bigger audiobooks when it came out, and it's because I couldn't read out loud, so I fucked up through the entire thing.
Why couldn't you read out loud?
I have a hard time reading. I'm a little dyslexic.
What?
So the whole time I would just fucking ruin sentences and then reread them and then curse and yell and fucking throw pages.
That's a funny audiobook.
It's a funnier audiobook than it is book.
And then my dad said to me, God damn it.
I was a motherfucker. Who wrote this goddamn fucking book? I'm a fucking idiot. Like, and so, but Fitzsimmons is a good one to talk to with that. But you're someone like Stanhope where I go, yeah, I'm dying to read your book. Like, as soon as Stanhope puts out a book, I go, I'm in. Like, I'm buying it.
It's great. All my best stories, traveling the world, and all these epic things that have happened to me. The problem is, I've already written the first draft, but it's just so much that I'm trying to whittle it down. And I got a few friends helping me, and writers. You know, a good friend of mine won the Pulitzer Prize a few years ago, Gilbert King. Who I've known for years, and Mishka Shalubi has been
I know Mishka.
Giving me some just advice about how to.
Mishka wrote a great book.
Yeah, he really did.
Yeah,
and so just about finding what's the story to guide your ship of your plot.
Do you find your artistic spirit has awoken, stayed the same, or shifted since you stopped boozing?
I feel like I'm a different person, and it's not to bring up Miles Davis again. The remarkable thing about Miles Davis was he changed his style completely like 9 times in his career.
Yeah,
I'm not comparing myself to Miles Davis, but it just popped into my head.
Fair comparison.
I feel like I'm a different person because, you know, I had long hair for like 10 years, and then when I moved back from Europe, I was wearing tailored suits and glasses. Always been a heavy partier, life of the party, and I busted my head open in Philadelphia and decided to stop drinking and doing drugs. And I just feel like it's interesting going through this book and all that I've done and different, like, you know, wild man episodes and different things that were happening in my life. I just think that I'm at a higher plateau.
You seem happier, like and I'm talking through your Instagram. When I see your Instagram, you look like you're living. You look like you got. This sounds so silly. You look in your Instagram videos that you post, you're like a guy that got out of prison. Does that make sense?
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I feel like, I love my wife. She's amazing.
Yeah, you guys have a great relationship.
So I've gotten a lot of confusion out of my life. And you're single and you're whatever and you're, and all this. And then as a comedian and you're traveling, she's artistic. She's a photographer. And we both love books and knowledge. I'm making these knowledge nugget videos, which all things comedy. We're gonna start. I'm gonna make some animated versions of these knowledge nuggets.
Oh, that's great.
I really get off on traveling to different countries and learning.
You really love that though.
That's one that's like performing. The fact that I stopped drinking and doing hard drugs, now I got back to where I was when I was 17 years old when I started doing comedy, where like comedy's the drug.
Yeah.
We're just being on stage and like, performing jokes that I've written is the drug. But also, one of my strongest narcotics is to travel to different countries and like study. Like I'm obsessed with the French Revolution right now. Oh. So before I went to Mongolia, I read Genghis Khan's biography. So I got all these great facts about Genghis Khan. Like I opened the show in Mongolia. Apparently, everyone in the world is somehow related to Genghis Khan.
Yeah,
so
I'm
just here to visit family. Hello, cousins, and it's just great stuff. And then I told him I had just finished reading the biography of Genghis Khan, and under the Genghis Khan's rule, no individual was ever held responsible for a mistake or an error. It was always the community as a whole's responsibility. So if this show doesn't go well tonight, it's all of our fault. So like, just like, and then, I was in Tokyo before that. I've been obsessed with samurai warriors my whole life. So I got lots of stuff about samurai and just like if I think you've been to my house. I've got over 2,000 books. I love reading.
I wish I loved reading.
Well, it's great, and like people always go, man, the traveling must be so difficult. No, that's my favorite thing about the time flies for me on airplanes because I'm sitting there knocking out a book while I'm waiting for the flight or sitting on the 13-hour flight to Asia or something.
Were you like that in high school?
I think it started in high school.
Really?
It was after. I think it was because I didn't go to university. That's why I started reading so ferociously. Yeah. Because I didn't want my friends that I grew up with to grow further than me. And then a lot of these good friends of mine who went to university, after they got out of university, they never read ever again because they like hated reading and looked at it like a chore.
And you looked at it as...
I love it. Like I lived in San Francisco for 7 years. The City Lights bookstore, I refer to that as the university bookstore of my life.
Really?
There's so many great bookstores, and I love going to used bookstores. There's a place in Vancouver called McLeod's, which is amazing. My favorite bookstore in the world is in Galway, Ireland. It's called Charlie Burns. And like just you go in and spend like $100. Every time I go there, I'll spend like €100.
Really?
And like the books I buy there will fuel me for like the next year,
I wish I could. I wonder if it's because I think I need glasses, but I sit to read a book and I find it a lot like a warm blanket. If I'm on the road and I'm like not boozing, which like I'm getting ready for this hour, so it's been a lot lately, I find myself going like, I started a documentary, or I got a book. I read a stupid book, but I wanted to read a book when I was in. I wanted to read a book about imperialism, because I know that's like, and I know you know this, but like one of the things that a lot of British comics talk about is how imperialistic the British Empire was. Yeah. Steve Hughes always kept saying, "It's imperialism, mate. They don't understand the racists. They don't even know it. They think they're better than them." And I wanted to read a book about imperialism, and I got this big, thick book about the British Empire, and I started reading it, and my brain swims, and I get overwhelmed, and I just start daydreaming. And then I'm like, I'm not even fucking reading. I might as well put the book down and just daydream.
Well, I mean, it happens to me. If a book doesn't grab me in the first 30 pages, I'll put it down.
Really?
I mean, it might not be your fault. It might be the writer.
I'm sure I don't have any place.
This book I'm reading now on the French Revolution, it's in my bag. It's called Paris and the Terrors. And Stanley Loomis, I think, is the... And it's like basically 3 chapters. The first is the assassination of Marat.
So I don't know if you can or if you want to, but give me. I don't really know anything about the French Revolution.
Yeah.
How would you surmise it for a dummy? Does it have anything to do with the Renaissance?
It was the writers Voltaire and Rousseau had written books. In the Enlightenment, people started to realize that, there had been kings and emperors, and the Catholic Church ran everything. And people started to realize, hey, man, those people aren't fucking special. They're just human beings. And I have a dick, and that guy poops just like everybody. And people started talking and realizing, hey, why do we got to give money to the priest to get to heaven? And maybe there isn't a heaven. And that's the Enlightenment. People started to...
What year is this? Is this like 1600s?
This is the 1700s.
So, God, that's it started like thinking.
I mean, it starts in the 1600s, and then the wheels started coming off the vehicle in the 1700s, and the French Revolution started out with noble ideas, and then there were bloodthirsty thugs like Marat. Yeah. And who stirred up the crowd and brought all these like gutter people who were murderers and were raping women and killing people and stealing things, and the French Revolution turned really ugly.
Is that Marie Antoinette? Or is that
It was her husband was Louis the 16th.
Yeah.
And they were, guillotined. But even the players who got the French Revolution rolling, they ended up getting their head. Well, the guy Marat was stabbed to death in his bathtub by this woman, Charlotte Corday, from Caen, France, in the north, from Normandy.
Yeah.
And she had never been to Paris before. This young 19-year-old girl got it in her head that this guy was screwing up, and she was correct.
Yeah.
And she had read all these things about Rome and the ancient Greeks, and she saw herself as the person who probably should go straighten this out. And then she went. So there's this party, the Girondin party, and they all had to flee. They were in charge when the French Revolution started. And so they started getting their heads cut off. Marat had his own newspaper, and he's writing all this shit. And he had a terrible skin disease. He had to bathe in this copper pot every day for relief from his lesions and boils.
Oh, my God.
Really terrible human being. So there's a famous painting by David, and he's sitting in... Well, hand me my bag. There, because my bookmark I'm using is the... I always thought it was a really curious painting. And so Marat is... He's in this bathtub, and he's got his a paper and a pen in his hand. And I always thought, well, the guy must have been writing a letter or something. But
yeah.
Charlotte Corday, so the Girondins had fled to Caen. So she was turned away the first day by Marat's people. And the second day she came and said, I have information on the Girondins in Caen. And he said, let her in. And he got a pen and a piece of paper and said, I'll have them all guillotined by the end of the week. And that's when she stuck a butcher knife in his chest and murdered him. And she was just this,
19-year-old
noble girl from Caen who thought that these bad people had taken over the idealism of what the French Revolution should have been about. And she was correct.
And what happened to her?
She was guillotined. They loved cutting people's fucking heads off. And it's interesting reading. It's interesting reading about the French Revolution now, because you think, wow, it's funny to think that people who could differ politically would feel so strongly that they would cut the other people's heads off. And you look at the climate that our country's in now, and it's like, yeah, I can easily see if, circumstances were right. Yeah, fuck all those people in that party. Let's cut off all their heads.
Well, there's a French or a Canadian author, Margot Tibet. I don't know her name, but she got in a lot of hot water for saying that what's going on with the Me Too movement
it's the intelligent Price is Right.
By the way, that book would pass right by me because of the cover. I'd be like, there's nothing in there I want to read. I'd flip through. I go, no pictures?
Can I say one last thing? I'm reading about Danton now.
Yeah.
He was you would love Danton. He was a guy really forceful guy, really great leader. I think you might identify with him, but he was ultimately sent to the guillotine also. And when he stepped onto the platform of the guillotine, he told the executioner, "Be sure to hold my head up for the people. It's well worth seeing."
Oh,
yes.
Yes. I'm sure that's a book out there.
If you're gonna get your head cut off, you got to say something cool when you get up on the platform.
There should be a book. I'm sure it's out there. Famous Last Words. I'm sure.
I'm sure.
I'm sure it's out there. But one of my favorite executions ever, and I've only seen a few. I've only seen this one, maybe. I take that. I must be. But out of all the executions, is Saddam Hussein's. He didn't say a fucking word. Just walked in, killed him. I was like, and I remember thinking when I saw that, I was like, I would not have handled it that way. I would have been like, I guess we'll never find out where the treasure is. Fine. I'll suck all your dicks. I'll suck everyone's dick. I'll suck all your dicks. I don't care. Just keep me in a box and put dicks in my mouth. I want to be alive. I would have fucking panicked.
Oh, that's hilarious.
This is David Tell's favorite part of the podcast when the chickens lay an egg. He goes, I feel like I'm in a Guatemalan village doing a podcast.
I like Guatemalan villages. That's nice. But because you grew up in Florida also, I'll never forget. I think I was in 8th grade or 7th grade at Jackson Heights Middle School in Oviedo, Florida.
Yeah.
When Ted Bundy was executed.
Yeah.
They made an announcement over the intercom. The principal made an announcement that the state of Florida had just executed Ted Bundy.
Yep. And
we were 12 years old. And the whole school clapped. Yeah. And I've always, I don't know if that happened at your school, but I always thought that was really interesting that they interrupted a day of children learning to announce that the state had just executed
I remember
him.
Definitely they were talking about on the radio going into school, and they were like, I want to say they did something at our school, like turn the lights on and off. Like, power shortage.
Well.
Like, which is probably 10 times more distasteful than just announcing. I remember where I was when the shuttle blew up.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
I remember being outside Mrs. Bonneau's class. She's our Latin teacher. She used to sell nachos on the side. For $1, you could get a nachos. Probably like 25 cents now. That I look back, probably went $1. But like 25 cents, you could get nachos. So at like our 3 periods in, we'd have an intermission. And she'd open her class door and have a nacho stand sitting out her class door, and everyone would buy Bonneau's nachos. And I remember waiting in line for nachos, and they're like the shuttle just blew up. And then she opened her thing. She had a TV, and she turned on the TV, and everyone sat in her class and watched, and being like, "Whoa!"
That was 87, right?
No, had to be 80. Had to be 84, 85.
When the shuttle blew up?
Yeah, it had to be.
No, I think it was because I was out of school.
I was in 6th grade, 7th grade, no older.
Are you looking it up, Halston?
Yeah. What is it, Halston?
Because I had gotten out of high school, and I remember I was staying with a friend on his couch in Queens, and I saw it on television.
No, you're not that. You're only like 4 years older than me.
No. 86, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Because I graduated high school in 85. So it was one of my first trips to New York City.
I must have been in 8th grade.
And I'm staying with my friend Gil King, who I mentioned earlier, the Pulitzer Prize winner. Staying on his couch in Woodside, Queens. And I took the subway into the city, and I couldn't believe everybody was acting like it was a normal day. I was like, I'm looking around like, my God, don't these people realize that the space shuttle blew up?
Space
These people have died, and like
such a big deal to us.
Where I grew up in Florida, in Oviedo, you could see the space shuttle go up in the distance.
Yeah. Oh, so anytime the space shuttle went, I got out of class.
So they would let everyone in the school out, and we would all go sit on the grass or stand out on the on the grass, and you could see it go up in the distance, the smoke cloud, and I always thought that was like such a cool thing about growing up in Central Florida.
Yeah.
To see the space shuttle grow up. So it was a huge event. And I mean, I remember I always knew the astronauts' names and things like that.
Yeah.
Like when I first went to Holland, I had him on my late night talk show, and I became friends with Wooboe Oakels, who was the first Dutchman in space. And I remember the first woman in space and the first African American in space. And all this was a big deal.
Yeah.
Growing up in Florida. So it just blew me away that these people on the subway weren't crying or something.
Oh, Krista McCullough.
Yeah.
That was the teacher who they sent up in space. And I remember that was a person that all the jokes were about, because you'd hear jokes about the space shuttle after that. Every class had the jokes. I can't remember them now.
Well, I remember when I went back to Florida right after that, I remember a club owner saying to the comedians, if any of you make a joke about the space shuttle, you'll never work here again.
Really?
And I've always thought about that in different times when a tragedy or something will happen, and there's always one little snarky asshole who thinks, well, it's my right as a comedian to make a joke about whatever I want.
Yeah.
Which is true, but, certain places. I was in Las Vegas right after that
shooting?
That mass shooting.
Really?
And I was playing at the MGM, like a block from where it happened, and just out of being classy and
being a human,
having good manners, why bring up something that is going to upset everyone?
I have a joke. I don't have it I can't figure out if I'm going to use it or not. I have a joke about 9/11, which I think enough times passed where you could theoretically tell. In my head, I was like, you can tell a joke about 9/11, but I was performing in Governors in Long Island 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday, and I got to the place where I'd say that joke, and I went, nah.
Yeah.
Because their family members are still dead.
Yeah, people probably lost family members.
Yeah, I'm
right?
sure they're gotten over the initial mourning. I'm sure they're okay. They're dealing with it. But I don't think that's what they want to hear in my show tonight. It's so funny. One of my buddies, the buddy who's producing my special, was like, mentioned to me, there's a couple jokes I don't think you know what they sound like. And I was like, really? He was like, yeah. He's like, you're making fun of deaf people a lot. I was like, am I really? He was like, I mean, just more than I think you would normally make fun of deaf people. And he goes, it just seems really anti-deaf in your act. I went, hold on. And I love deaf people. I mean, meaning like from a comedy standpoint, making a deaf person laugh is so much more enjoyable because they don't know what they sound like. So it's a real unbridled laughter. So I would never want to mock that. I've had the opportunity where a deaf couple were fans of my TV show, came to my show, and I got them laughing, and we ended up going out and having pizzas at Illuminati's the next day. And I was like, oh, so I had this joke, but it's like you tell a joke, you get so close to the forest, you don't realize what it is anymore. The nuance of it that made it work the first couple times is lost on you, and you just go to the thing that you thought was the hammer, And so he made me rethink it, and I was like, okay, I'll work on that this weekend. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even see that happening. But yeah, I veered from that 9/11 joke just because of that, because I was like, and then part of me was like, well, if you do that there, maybe you shouldn't do that on your special. Maybe they're going to watch it too. Maybe, I'm not that guy. I'm not Doug,
Yeah.
I love what Doug does. I love watching Doug do stand-up, but I'm not him. And I don't like the shrapnel that Doug does not notice. Like, Doug can say a joke, someone gets upset, and he's like, doesn't register to me.
Yeah.
I'm way too sensitive. I go, I really didn't mean for you to have a bad time.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Like, I had a joke that ended with, it was basically a pro Black Lives Matter joke, mm-hmm. and I thought some racist people might misconstrue the meaning of it.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing it. My whole point was that we should start, and I spoke the words that we should prosecute these cops who keep killing unarmed black people.
Yeah.
And so but still, and that was the point of the joke, even though there was, some silliness about condiments to set it up. But I stopped doing it.
Yeah, I had a joke where the go ahead.
I don't want the good people to think I'm one of the bad people.
That is exactly what I try to avoid, because I go, not that I care about, like, it's like I'm not doing my job properly, and I'll work it out, I'll figure it out, but I'm not gonna figure it out in that time frame. So I'm gonna pull it off the fire for a little bit. It's not ready to serve. Like, I had a joke about about me and this black guy in a airport bar, and a Middle Eastern guy walks in, and then the black guy says to me, "I hope that motherfucker's not on my plane." And then my joke was, it was a true story, and it was true feelings, true sentiment. But my joke was, how does he, like, he's being racist to me, like, with me. How does he know my racism stops at Middle Eastern people? Like, if I'm white and I am racist, which he assumes I am,
right?
Then wouldn't I hate everybody? Like, I'm white. Like, I'd hate it across the board. And this one guy came up to me and was like, "Hey, man, my racism doesn't stop at Middle Easterns either." And I was like, that's not what I'm saying. Like, I'm saying, oh, never mind. Yeah, good call. So I had to rework it 9 different ways. But then at the end, I was just like, it ultimately turned into the fact that this guy was being a racist and I complied. So then in actuality, I guess I'm racist too. We're all racist. And so I just kind of was like, you know what? I'll figure it out one day. It's just not right now. Everything's so fucking volatile.
Yeah.
I don't even talk. I take that back. I probably talk about the Me Too thing every time I'm on stage. I mentioned something about it. But like, it's almost like an impulse. Like, I can't stop. Like, I get to this point where I have this fucking hacky bit, but I say it, and then I just go, I just end up talking about Kevin Spacey. I can't help it. I think sometimes, tell me what you think about this thought. I had a part in a joke where I'd say, the teacher was hot as shit. He definitely worked out. And everyone laughed because it's obviously. And then I had to stop saying it because in my head I thought, we're never going to have true progress until that's not humorous. It shouldn't be humorous that a guy's gay. And I know that. This shouldn't be funny that a guy's gay. Like, that's not funny. It's just guy's life. But I'm saying it and it's getting a laugh. So I'm forwarding the concept that it's silly that a guy would sleep with another man. And so I had to stop saying it. It bothered me that I would say it and it would get a laugh. Because I go, true progress is when I go, he really worked out, and he definitely worked out, and everyone's like, oh, did he? Like, that's true progress. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't know.
I don't know. You might be overthinking it. Because I had a great joke about samurai in Japan. That and one of my favorite books is Hagakure, the Way of the Samurai.
Yeah,
it was written in like the 13th century. It's these ancient, in the words of the ancients, one should make every decision within the space of 7 breaths. Think about that. 1, 2, 7 breaths is a long time. You should make every decision in the space of 7 breaths. When writing a letter, one should imagine that the recipient will hang the letter as a hanging scroll. These were things written in the 13th century of how a samurai should conduct himself.
I love that.
A person of little merit goes around making trouble with all. A person who is settled, I forget exactly what it is, but I always love a person of little merit goes around making trouble with all. But anyway, so I talked about, like in Japan, how much I loved The Way of the Samurai, this book, Hagakure. And then while I was in Japan, I learned all these new things about samurais that I never knew. Samurai would test their swords by cutting people in half. They often randomly killed people for fun.
Really?
They would shoot dogs with arrows for sport. It was a lot of samurai had sex with young men and it was encouraged. A lot of the older samurai would mentor young samurai, and it was not only allowed, it was encouraged that they had sex with the young men that they mentored. An important word in samurai is seppuku. You probably heard of it. That's the act of, if a samurai felt that he had done something shameful or made a mistake, he would commit suicide by plunging his own sword into his stomach and killing himself.
Yeah.
I love gay people, but they can be so dramatic sometimes.
That's great.
So,
That's
like,
great.
You know, I don't think that's. I don't think that I think it's kind of cool that there were.
That's different. That's
that there were
different.
gay samurai.
Yeah, I think that's. I like that joke much better than my joke. They can be so dramatic at sometimes. Oh, that's fucking fat. I thought the joke you were gonna do was 7 breasts and then I'll suck his dick.
No. Well, that would have been your version.
7 breasts.
Although I do think the Saddam Hussein joke is hilarious. You should do that.
Oh,
that's
really?
Funny. Yeah, that's so funny. Just keep me alive. Keep me in a box.
Put dicks in the box. I'll suck them all. I don't care.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That could have been the answer to male misogyny in Los Angeles. They could have just brought that Saddam box to Los Angeles.
Man, have you been abroad for the whole Me Too thing?
No, I'm traveling, but it's in all over the world. And then,
is it coming up over there?
No, but in France they have the Me Too hashtag. Me Too has inspired. I think it's Out Your Pig. Is the version they're doing in France?
Really?
Yeah, no.
But sexuality is so different in Europe than it is in the States.
No, but there's no. I mean, what was that? The guy, the French guy that raped the maid in New York City. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Years ago.
And he is now in Russia.
No, I don't know what happened to that guy.
Oh, what was his name?
But no, that's the Me Too thing is everywhere. I mean,
I like the dialogue it opens. I like that. I like stuff that forces people to question themselves, their behavior, and listen to other people. I like that. I have no problem with. When I was really young, I used to have a joke that I always never would. I like political correctness. I like that. We're allowing people to feel more like I feel every day. Like as a privileged white male, I feel pretty fucking awesome every day. I mean, life doesn't throw me a ton of curveballs that I can't deal with. I'm healthy, but I think that's probably the only place it would happen. But like, I don't get followed around a store, and I don't have no one smacks me on the ass, no one whistles at me. I'm probably, and I remember when I was younger going, I think everyone should feel like that. There's no reason a woman should go to work and feel like, oh fuck, dread work and go,
yeah,
this is going to be a fucking long. There's no, and I don't understand anyone who doesn't understand that.
Big thing for me that it highlights, just something that really irritates the shit out of me in any form is bad manners.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate injustice. That's a big thing. And you can see that in my comedy. I'll talk about things that I think are just unjust. And I think it's just people not having good manners. And the sexual harassment and all the, a lot of the Me Too things, just people really having bad manners.
I think there is
like pulling your dick out and jacking off in front of somebody.
That's not good manners.
It's not good manners.
I mean, unless you're on coke in a McDougal in an apartment with a waitress and it's mutual, and you guys have agreed there's a candle and you listen to Ani DeFranco, then yeah, you guys agree on
Ani
it.
DeFranco. That's what a great. I used to love Ani DeFranco.
Oh my God,
that's so great.
I was obsessed with Ani DeFranco.
I was too. That's so great.
She was like. There was a period of my life where I became like I think my other side, my feminine side opened up when I first started doing comedy, and I think probably because the nicest people to me in the business at the time were women. Like, women comics were always pleasant. Like, Sarah Silverman would just walk in and she'd be like, "Hey, how you doing?"
One of the best humans ever. And one of my favorite comedians. I think she's, her comedy and the way she's evolved. I thought her last special was brilliant.
She's phenomenal.
She's just the craft of delivering and the sucker punch and the element of surprise. Just her writing is exceptional.
Yeah, I think she's phenomenal. I wish I'm going through a little bit of a Chelsea Handler phase where I'm like a little obsessed with her. Not obsessed, but like
you're obsessed with Chelsea.
I think she's cool. I think she's smart. I wish she still did stand up. I understand that she's going to be an activist now. I think that a lot of women are starting to veer that way.
Yeah.
Alyssa Milano is one of my favorite human beings. Just I like anything goes down with anything, and I go, what's Alyssa Milano's take? Because despite the fact that she started her career on Who's the Boss, she really is an intelligent, well-thought person who shares a very compassionate viewpoint with things, and I like that. But yeah, I think the women were always really cool to me, and I remember, I don't forget who it was, but introduced me to Ani DeFranco, and I was like, oh, this is badass. I was also obsessed with Janine. I was always thought Janine was like the shit, but and I went through a big Ani DeFranco phase. Oh.
I did too in the late '90s, and I always loved. Well, she had her own record labal.
Yeah,
and I love
Ruthless,
Righteous Babe.
Righteous Babe.
And the symbol is this woman like doing. I always loved that. I actually sent her my first CD that I put out myself.
Really?
Hot Sweet Ass, and I mailed it to her production company, their Righteous Babe in Buffalo, New York, when I first put it out, and I said, I don't know if you ever think about putting out a comedian on your label, but I would like you to consider me.
Any word back?
And I never heard back from her.
I wonder how she was our age when she was making music, right? Like girls like her, ladies like
I think she's still making music. I'm not sure.
She's still touring. Amy Schumer just went and saw her in New Orleans. I just saw Amy Schumer video post. I'm probably most dialed into Instagram.
Okay, good.
I think Instagram's
then you're loving me.
I am.
I only have like 2,300 followers, which is amazing. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So, like, I've posted these earlier when you brought this up. Like, I went to the world's largest Genghis Khan statue. It's like an hour and a half out of Ulaanbaatar, which is the capital of Mongolia.
Yeah.
And they don't have highways, man. It was a 2-lane road. There was like some cows got into the road, and all of a sudden there's a traffic jam.
Really?
And then all those gurs, they're not called yurts, those round white tents. They're called gurs.
They travel with those, right?
Well, some of them, but a lot of them they're kind of permanently in areas. So you go out of the city, and there's a few in the city. But as you go out into the country, you see the gurs everywhere. And there was a point where it was like, am I going to make it back in time to do the show?
Yeah.
And the comedian who was driving was like just hauling ass, and it's freezing. It was like in the 30s. Oh. And we made it there, and the statue, it's on my Instagram. And then I did a podcast about Genghis Khan, and I used this as the photo for the episode. It's a beautiful silver statue, like aluminum silver, like a Coors Light can.
Yeah.
The statue itself, and it was at sunset when I got up there. The platform is on top of the horse's head, and there's this beautiful shot of the sunset under Genghis Khan's arm, and I'm on the thing, and like I think I got like. However, I got 43 likes or something.
Yeah.
But had it been a photo with a famous friend of mine that I saw at the Comedy Store, I would have gotten like a fucking 1,000 likes.
That's so interesting.
So that's the interesting thing about Instagram.
Oh, I'm like I get very into it. Like I'll post a video and then go, oh shit, I should have done a better cover for that. Oh, I should have done a better filter. Oh, I should have posted that at 2 p.m. as opposed to, like, there's a period if you live in LA that if you post, you get the most amount of views, mostly because the majority of our English-speaking fans are awake at the same time. Australia,
people say that
England.
to me, but like I play all over the world, so I always think, well, fucking morning in France.
Yeah, but it's
somebody
not,
in
it's not the
China or
fun.
Japan.
Like if you post, I think if you post at 4 or 5 p.m. in LA time, then the majority of English speaking people are awake. You get Australia, England. I think it's like 4 or 3. England, Australia, the States, and so I noticed that when I started to tour Australia, I was like, oh, I should probably post these when Australia's awake, as opposed to when the state. It doesn't matter if anyone in the States sees these promo videos.
Yeah,
like I should post it when Australia's wide awake.
I had to because I've taken most of January off to focus on my book.
Yeah.
And my wife made me take Instagram off my phone, which is great. So like I'm not distracted. I'm not looking at Instagram. Yeah. It's addictive, man.
Oh, it's hardcore.
Where's Bert Kreischer right now?
Oh, it's one of my favorite things to do is just go on and go, like, especially with you because you travel so much. I'm like, oh, cool. And your minute bit of informations were great.
The knowledge nuggets.
I was like, oh, it is what I think that platform's meant for, as opposed to just pictures of your food. I like following chefs that show me cool food. I like chefs who kind of break down food for me a little more. Like, but for the most part, yeah, like I want that, and people who can navigate the stories really well. Like I like good stories. I like a story that has a beginning, middle, and end. I like the stories that have arcs, and then or
as far as photos goes, stories.
No, the stories. Are you back on Instagram yet?
I posted a couple things yesterday. I was given a.
So this is the stories. Is those top circles up there?
Oh yeah.
So like, I mean, always.
Those are videos.
Yeah, they're videos. They're like, or sometimes pictures, but Eliza, Jen Kirkman, Sebastian, Dane, Adam Richmond, Sklar Brothers. I just followed this girl, Alexi Wasser. Duncan Trussell told me to follow her. He's like, she does really good stories. So I was like, oh, cool. I follow this guy, Adam Greentree, who I met through Rogan, who's a hunter. And he just does like these, he just hunts. That guy hunts the way we write jokes. He just fucking hunts. I mean, if he's not rebuilding a fence or a floor or a table or a truck, he's hunting. And I've seen the guy kill 2 deers in a day. Wow. Like he fucking hunts. Makes me want to hunt. I was talking to Dunk about it today. Makes me want to hunt, but I don't think I have the balls to kill anything. Yeah. I don't think I could really.
Yeah, I don't either. And I was never a big gun guy, but I was playing in Alaska about 10 years ago. And I met.
Choku Charlies?
Years ago, like 10 years ago. I met some guy, big gun enthusiast guy, and he actually had a charting fishing boat. He took me out fishing, and I got to bring a cooler full of halibut back home. But he took me skeet shooting, and I've never been a gun person in my life. I was amazing at it, and I loved it. So I could never shoot an animal. I wouldn't want to kill anything, but I will fuck up a clay plate.
Dude, we should go skeet shooting. There's a great skeet shooting place.
Oh my God. Now fuck golf.
Yeah.
I want to go skeet shooting.
Dude,
let's do that.
Can I plan a skeet shooting adventure for us?
Yes, let's make that our thing.
They've got this one thing we did that's even more fun. You walk through the woods with your gun, and you go to different stations, and you go to your station, and you don't know where the skeet's coming from, but you hear it come out, and it's really like hunting. It's the same place.
That sounds like you could get shot in the face. Like
no. It's totally organized properly. Meaning like you go, like it's a platform. It's like a dock, and with a hooded thing, and you swipe. I forget how we did it, but I think you swipe something, and then or you press a button. And then you hear doot doot, and the skeet come out, but they come out from you're shooting into the open, but they come out from like underneath or above, just like if you were shooting birds. It's really fun. I did it with my friends. It was really fun. I'll plan a skeet shooting adventure.
Okay.
I did it with
and if I get shot in the face, everybody heard it here.
What's even more funny is we went and did it. We've got these shotgun. We're shooting clay pigeons, and we're 3 guys. Loaded shotguns walking down the path to go to our next playing, and a deer walked directly in front of us. Like, nah, I'm safe here, guys.
Wow.
And we just walked and kept going. And we're like, oh, this is like the whole thing of hunting. You're supposed to shoot it. Like, yeah, I don't know if I could. Although I've been trying to write this joke about elk, because like all I see are people cooking elk. Elk looks so fucking good. And I go, I just want to kill the fuck out of an elk. Like, they need a new PR team, because their digital footprint's horrible. All it is great elk steaks, great backstraps. I was like, they should get the same PR team that lions have, because you kill a lion and, man, fucking people go nuts.
I wrote a joke about deer hunting years ago because I was in a like a big sporting goods, one of those, I forget what the big hunting place is called. I'm a moron. There's a big chain of them all over.
Cabela's.
Something like that, yeah. And I was just looking around. And just looking around, and in the hunting area, they were selling doe urine.
Oh,
so apparently, like, deer hunters will just sprinkle it, because like the
I've been
doe,
drinking it.
The urine has this certain scent when the female deer is ready to mate. The urine has a special odor, so the hunter just sprinkles it around, and it just it makes it even more sad for me that the moment before a deer's life is ended, he's thinking, "Hey, there's girls over there."
Oh, you're not a fuck. I saw a bear hunting thing one time on TV, and it didn't seem fair to me. These guys were in like a house, so they couldn't get hurt by the bear, and they were just, it was almost like they lured the bear to them, and then the bear showed up, and then they just like got him and shot him. And I was like, oh, I don't want to hunt bear. Like, part of the hunt of a bear, I would think, would be walking down the thing and the bear's there and you're staring at it and you got to get your shit together.
The Revenant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I think, it's so funny. One friend gets into hunting and now all of a sudden I'm watching hunting videos like crazy. I was saying the thing I like about hunting, or the thing that would draw me to it, is the romantic side of going out in the woods,
Waking up early,
like literally, like fucking making a fire, and then trying to find an animal, like with you and like 3 friends, and then hunting that animal, and then we killed a buffalo one time for a trip flip, and man, I cried. The second we shot it, I cried.
Oh, buffalo, wow.
Oh, so bad. It was a big herd. We were in, I think, Idaho, up by Montana, in Crow Nation, Crow territory. And it was the Crow that had the right to kill the buffalo. So we get up on a perch, all the buffalo are down, big herd. And they're like, we got to take out one of the males, because if you too many males, and shit goes down. And so we're going to take out one of the males. So they line the shot up, shoot. As soon as they shoot, all the buffalo kind of run off except for one, and they didn't get him in like his vitals.
He was suicidal. He'd just broken up with his girl.
He's like, "Aw,
life isn't worth
when
living."
You take my head, show it to the crowd.
It's well worth seeing.
And they shot him, and I guess they didn't get his vital, and so he kind of was like, "Oh, what the fuck?" And then everyone took off except he couldn't run. They shoot it again. And now he goes down to a knee, and then this little baby buffalo comes running back to him like, "Dad, what the fuck? Come on, we got to go, Dad. They're shooting." And you could see him like, "No, go, keep going. They're going to get you too." And then they shot it again, and the baby wouldn't leave him. And then one of the mom, guessing a mom, came over and said, "Come on, let's go. This is dangerous." And then we went down, and it was like, I was just really fucking intense, and I had a really tough time dealing with it. I was like,
yeah, it's such beautiful animals.
Yeah.
And one of our American symbols. One of my favorite places in America is Montana.
Oh.
And I've been to Montana like 5-6 times. Rich Hall is one of my oldest best friends. He owns
genius.
a place in Livingston.
He's a genius.
And I've been going to visit. And Rich helped me get in with London years ago. And it's interesting, in the movie Phantom Thread, the way they film it, he's on Fitzroy Square, where Daniel Day-Lewis lives, where his sewing shop is.
Yeah.
And so Rich Hall lived on Fitzroy Square. And the first 5 years when I lived in Holland, when I first started making trips to London, and that's how when I got in with London, led to the international circuits, Rich Hall gave me a key to his apartment.
Really?
And he lived on Fitzroy Square. And so that was my favorite thing about the movie Phantom Thread. I'm like, oh my God, it's Fitzroy Square.
Yeah.
And it looks like, England, this old England is why they filmed there. But Rich has a place in Livingston. So I've been to Montana a lot. And the last time I was there, we were, you'll see signs that say Bison next 10 miles or whatever, and then there'll be bison along the road. So I thought, what's the difference between, and I made a knowledge nugget out of this. What's the difference between a buffalo and a bison?
What?
The really only, if I remember this correctly, the only true buffalo are the African buffalo and the Asian buffalo. What we have in North America are bison. And the difference between a bison and a buffalo is that it has never been recorded or witnessed a buffalo mating with cows, but
Really?
it has been recorded and witnessed many times. Bison will mate with cows.
Really?
So that's the difference, that a bison will fuck a cow and a buffalo won't.
Oh, a buffalo's just a discerning animal. I don't fuck cows, bro. I can get better than that. I'm trying to make sure I don't. It's only 3:14 right now? Yeah. Okay, good. I have to go play. That was the fight you were witnessing inside.
Yeah.
I'm playing tennis with Georgia at 4.
Okay.
So I got to be out of here in 15 minutes.
Oh, no.
But yeah, I know. But
It always goes by so quick.
I know. Dude, I want to keep going, but you just, it's part of who you are. You're the most slept on podcaster ever. And I always say, I've said
Most
this.
what?
Slept on podcaster.
What do you mean?
Like, people don't realize what amazing podcast interviews you do. I remember you telling me one time, we were in passing, I said, man, I love the podcast you did with Doug Stanhope. You go, oh, you should check out the one I have with Kim.com.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And you're like, oh, just check it out. You were very flippant about it. You weren't like, oh, I only got maybe the biggest fucking get ever, like the most federally sought after, legally sought after gazillionaire in Micronesia.
He lives in New Zealand.
In New Zealand.
Yeah.
And you did a fucking podcast with this
Yeah,
guy.
I went to his house in New Zealand.
You went to his house.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to it going, hold on one second. I remember going, it's got to be a different Kim.com. I'm like, wait, am I thinking of and then I was Googling him as I'm listening to it. I think I'm on a plane and I'm on my iPad and I'm looking at all his shit and who this guy is. And I'm like, Tom did a podcast with this guy? And I was like, that was one of my favorite fucking podcasts.
Cool. I need, it's remarkable I don't have more listeners. I have been doing some really cool ones lately, like about things that I'm really into. Like I went to Mongolia, so I read Genghis Khan's biography. So I did a Genghis Khan episode. In December, I went to Switzerland, and I went to Charlie Chaplin's house.
Really?
It's now a museum. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about a few things, and now we only have 15 minutes to talk about it.
I wish I'd.
I'm sorry.
This was a huge fight in our house.
It's no problem.
I
No
apologize.
problem. So I read Charlie Chaplin's autobiography, and then I did an episode about Charlie Chaplin. I'm going to Paris this weekend. I've got a show at Theatre de Louvre on the 29th. So I think next week when I get back, I'm going to do an episode on the French Revolution once I finish this book. So like I'm doing like a lot of research and a lot of really interesting, cool episodes
that people
now.
I feel like,
and it's all about we were talking about earlier, where the thing I get off about traveling is like learning the most that I can about these places, or like people who are my heroes who are from there.
Have you done Ari's podcast?
It's been a few years.
You got to do Ari's podcast again, because Ari now is going through, I think, that renaissance, that personal renaissance you went through. And now Ari is very much like about when he travels being very small footprint, very much ingrained, very much learning. Like, you know, in traveling with him is really interesting. And I always say I guess he did an interview with Henry Rollins, and it changed the way he looked at his life. I guess Henry Rollins is a lot like you. Go into a place, fucking bottle of water, a book, notebook, walk around, coffee, write, meet the people, eat something great, go into a museum, find some shit that you really want to learn about. I used to love this writer, James Michener.
Yeah, of course. Wrote all those books about Hawaii and Alaska.
Yeah, he would take a subject and
he had a great quote of if you don't want to experience the food and the people of different locations, why even bother traveling?
Yeah, and I would read Mishner as I traveled, and he would tell they were fictionalized stories of the events, but based in nonfiction. So he would add characters that he would make it easy. He would make what people do in movies. This is based on a true story. This guy, there were a lot of guys like this guy, but this is this guy's story. I loved it. Well, how big? Charlie Chaplin's house in Switzerland?
It's amazing. So he was in the McCarthy era. You know, he was a communist sympathizer.
Was he really?
Yeah, but he was called before Congress in the McCarthy hearings, and he said that I have never voted and I have never belonged to a political party. At the beginning of World War II, the United States did not want to get involved.
Yeah.
And before the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. So the Germans had attacked Russia. And a lot of people in the United States felt that a second front should be opened up against Germany to relieve Russia. So he was kind of pro-Russia, pro-communist. And a lot of people felt that in Europe, that the Germans needed to be taken care of. And that the second front, this attack on Germany, should be done. So there was a communist rally. There was an American senator was supposed to speak at it. There used to be communist groups in America before World War II. And the senator was supposed to speak at this rally in San Francisco. He got sick, asked Chaplin to cover for him. Chaplin went up there and opened his speech with "Comrades," and the place came fucking unglued. And then he did his pro-Russia, pro-commie rant. And then there wasn't much hubbubaloo about that. There was another commie rally at Carnegie Hall in New York City. And so the San Francisco one had gone so well, so they asked Chaplin to do the one at Carnegie Hall, and he walked out again and said, "Comrades," and the place fucking comes unglued. And a lot of people wrote about it. You know, hey, not only is Chaplin, having sex with all these teenage girls, he's, he's a commie.
Yeah.
So when 1952, he's on a ship going to England for the premiere of Limelight, and the United States revoked his temporary visa because he was an English citizen. He never gave up his English passport. And then he had felt like he had been persecuted enough by the American government, and thought things were a lot of very hypocritical here, with religious leaders getting involved in politics and all these things. And he just said, fuck it. And he moved his family to Switzerland.
I would love to live in Switzerland.
So his house is amazing. And what they've done, the museum, it was like 23 euros to get in, which I thought was a little pricey.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, I was like, it was well worth it. So in all these different, they let you sit on the furniture in the house, first of all. Most museums, you can't sit on the furniture.
Yeah.
And my favorite room, they had all these Chaplin home movies, him and his kids, and how he was living there as an old man in Switzerland. And it's great. You can sit on the chairs and sit there and watch it. And then also they had all these wax figures of Chaplin at different periods in his life. And Albert Einstein was his friend, Winston Churchill, Sophia Loren in the house. So I leave the house, and then, it's winter. The sun's going down at like 5 p.m. So I go in the backyard, and I sit in the backyard, and I watch the sunset on the Alps. And it was just, I have photos on Instagram.
I'm going to have to go through and retweet all your photos on Instagram.
And so it was like one of the happiest moments of my life, sitting in Chaplin's backyard watching the sunset. And I think winter's the time to go. Maybe in summer it might be a little more crowded.
Yeah.
And then they said, oh, you got to go. Then there's this modern building. And they said, oh, you got to go watch this movie. So there's a 10-minute movie on Chaplin's life, perfectly edited, sound bites, his movies, things through his life, just the story of his life for only 10 minutes. And then the screen opens up, and it's this recreation of a London street where Chaplin grew up. So it's not over yet. I've already peaked watching the sunset, being in the house. And I spent the whole day there. I got there like at 1. I spent probably 4 hours in the house.
Yeah.
And then an hour sitting in the backyard. And then the place closed at 6 p.m., so I only had an hour. I go down this London street, and then it's all these sets from Charlie Chaplin movies. The Gold Rush. This cabin is on this precipice of a cliff, and it's teetering.
Yeah.
And Chaplin is under the table. You can go onto the cabin, and it's set up like the movie set. It's on rollers. So you walk on one side of the cabin, and it tilts. And then Modern Times, where he gets stuck in the machinery.
Yeah.
You can like get on the cogs.
Shit.
And then there's a barbershop scene. And then, and then they had his bowler and his hat and the floppy shoes and everything.
Yeah.
But it was one of the greatest days I've ever spent in my life.
Really?
And I had his autobiography, but I had never read it. And I burned through it once I got home, and then I recorded this excellent episode about the life of Charlie Chaplin. But so I wanted to know, you as the traveler,
Yeah.
had you ever been to the Charlie Chaplin house?
No. My Switzerland experience was very adventure-based. So we went to Interlaken. We went skiing in the Alps. We went hella skiing. We went to one of my favorite memories ever. It's probably when I had a little too much control over my show, and I probably should not have had it. But I was like, I wanna. What's the dog? What's the big dog? It's Saint Bernard.
St. Bernard with the bottle of booze in the
they brought
barrel?
me to St. Bernard,
Yeah.
and I had him with me the whole trip.
Ha!
So we spent the night in an igloo, me and the St. Bernard. And then we went to a ski chalet, and we had hot white wine and fondue, and then stayed up there way too late and had to make our way down the mountain in pitch black. I mean, pitch black. But Switzerland is one of the places. I just started traveling with the girls, meaning like
Switzerland's amazing. And
one of the
to
greatest
take the
places I've
train through Switzerland on the top.
you take the train, and you all of a sudden you'll cut in and you'll see the most picturesque valley with a little town in there, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like Switzerland's
And going along Lake Geneva on the train.
and you get those little castles just like jettisoned out. You'll be on a road and a big mountain on the side, and on to your left is a big lake, and there will be a big castle just on an island in the lake, and you're like, what the? It is otherworldly. Like it is. It feels like it shouldn't exist. Especially kids growing up in Florida.
Yeah.
You go, there's no way this is fucking real.
There's a great comedy tour there. I've done it. This was the third time I've done it. There's a lot of, and I need to do a knowledge nugget about Switzerland. There's a lot of fascinating things about Switzerland, like a hamster. It's illegal to have only one hamster, because they need to have a friend.
Really?
Yeah, and they just made it illegal last week to boil lobsters live.
I just saw that.
And Sundays are sacred in Switzerland. It is illegal to make loud noises, to hammer, to hang out laundry, to wash your car. All these like activities, like Sundays are meant for people to take the day off and spend it with their family. There's like a lot of really fascinating things about Switzerland.
I would love.
And Switzerland, I think, like nature is the answer. Like if you're having problems in your life, to calm you out and get you back centered. And Switzerland has the greatest nature on the planet Earth. And Switzerland invented absinthe and LSD, two of the most mind-altering chemicals ever. So once upon a time, these people in Switzerland looked at this stunning nature and thought, it's just not enough.
One of the fascinating things that a very small thing, as everyone knows, my new hobby is snowboarding. But Switzerland, the skis, the slopes are above the tree line in a lot of the places. So when you go snow skiing, you never have seen slopes like this in the States, where it is a cliff next to you, and it's almost like a real note of, hey, you're in charge of your own safety here. Like this, we're not here to help you. This is your safety. If you don't know how to ski, don't get up here.
Right.
This is for skiers. I remember there was like I'm not even joking. I'm sure I'm exaggerating, but I swear to God, the path maybe was 15 feet wide, if that. And on one side was cliff, and on the other side was mountain. And I'm snowboarding, and I'm just thinking, hug the fucking mountain, run into the mountain, don't even get near the cliff, and I'm literally on my heels going down this mountain going like, motherfucker. And then you get open, and I had one of the most spiritual moments of my life. I'm snowboarding, and I kind of bust a little bit, and I look, I'm in the moment where you are snowboarding, and I'm on my ass, and I look up, and it's the Alps. And I'm like, oh my God, like how lucky am I to be in this one place? And I started crying, and there was a cameraman behind me, and he turned around, and I turned around, and I saw him, and I'm just bawling. And he's like, what are you going? And I'm like, I can't believe this is fucking real.
Yeah, and it's the exact opposite of Florida.
Oh, exact. And I remember going down to the bottom, getting down to the base, and there was this great bar, and I got the 2 big beers, and I sat in a fucking Adirondack, and I was staring up at the mountains, watching people ski in, and I'm just like, oh, this is the greatest fucking moment of my life. I got a big St. Bernard next to me. I love, dude, Switzerland is a fucking really happy place for me. I love that place.
Well, you got to go to the Charlie Chaplin house. And
I have to.
The interesting thing about Charlie Chaplin, I talked about this on my podcast, that after he died, grave robbers dug up his grave and tried to ransom his corpse to his family. And they found the guys, ended up, it was 2 local mechanics in the little town in Switzerland. So you can be rich. I said this on stage in Switzerland. I said it on the podcast. You know, you Swiss people, you're with all your money, think you got it figured out. But if you don't pay your low wage earners more money, they're going to dig up your dead bodies and ransom it to your family. So
I want to get hooked into some of these tours you do.
I'll be happy. And you know, you landed in Sydney, Australia the day I was leaving. Yeah. I would have loved to have. Sydney's one of my favorite cities in the world.
To have been there with you.
And you played that amazing theater,
the Enmore
Theater,
which voice dial changed to the N-word Theater.
What?
I posted it on Instagram, on Twitter. I was like, I'll be performing at the Enmore Theater, and they wrote the N-word Theater, and I think that helped me sell tickets ultimately. But yeah, I did the Sydney Opera House 2 nights in a row, just on part of the festival. Wow. And that was mind blowing. Yeah, didn't have the best sets of my life.
I years ago when I've been playing Sydney a long time, but I was staying at this hotel, and it was when I was trying to be healthy, so I would jog every day, and it was about 2 miles to the Sydney Opera House, and I would run up the steps of the Sydney Opera House and do the Rocky thing.
Yeah,
and that was my point of turning around.
This is how
also I've been on top of the Sydney Harbor Bridge. Have you ever done that?
No.
You can go and
do the hike.
You can climb up to the top of it. There's tours.
Yeah.
And you can go onto the top, and that's like one of the most incredible spots on planet Earth.
This is how detached I was in that Australian tour. Because for me, I was traveling every day and performing every night. And
you got to give yourself some time.
What happened was I hadn't sold well in Melbourne, and in Sydney I had sold okay. And they're like, we need you to do this radio show, or this TV show. Forget the name of it. Top of the chart. I don't know, top of the charts, but something like that. The View or The Look. I'm sure you've done it. And so I had to land in Perth, fly to Melbourne, fly back to Perth.
That's on the other side of the continent.
It was night, and so like it was back and forth the whole time, and it was just. And by the time I got to Sydney, was the only time I had 2 days off, like 2 days where I wasn't flying, and my buddy Eric Grusin came with me, and I'm walking down to the Sydney Opera House to do my set on the first night, and he goes, "How cool?" And I was like, "Huh?" And he was like, "You're performing at the Sydney Opera House," and I was like, "What?" He was like, "You're performing in the Sydney Opera House." And I went, "Oh." And I was, that's how far removed I was, how distant I was in that tour, because I was so used to just traveling and performing.
Yeah.
And when I got there, I went, "Oh my God." And I had this moment of clarity where I went, 7 years ago, I was here with Travel Channel. We were doing a segment, and I remember my buddy John Mans, it wasn't John Mans, it was my buddy Andy, my buddy John were like, "Hey Bert, one day you'll be performing there." And I was like, and I literally said, "Guys, something very drastic will happen in my career for me to perform in that place. Try." And I literally said, "Trust me, on my life, I will never perform there. That will never happen." And then I was performing there 2 nights in a row, and I was like, "Oh, No, and granted, I didn't sell the tickets. It was the festival that sold the tickets. But it
you
was.
Still played there.
I still played there. It was fucking badass.
I love Perth also. Perth
Dude,
did you go
love Perth.
In Fremantle, the town next door is where Bon Scott is from. I went and put flowers on Bon Scott's grave because early AC/DC helped me get through 8th grade at Jackson Heights Middle School.
Helped me get through any fist fight I was ever in high school.
And then in there's this spot called North Bridge Piazza.
No.
It's this park, this little square in the middle of the town, and it's got golf course, smooth grass, and there's a giant jumbotron TV screen. It's on William Street or James. There's a street where all these bars are, and I had come out. I was still drinking when I did the Perth Festival years ago. I'm walking on the street, and then here's this massive jumbotron screen, and they were showing like this African tribe, like they're doing this like drum thing, and people are dancing, and then it cut to like these Chinese women doing some like beautiful ribbon dance with these flowing ribbons, and it was just these little vignettes, snippets of all these great things from all over the world. And I was like boozed, and I just reclined in this plush golf course grass and watched this jumbotron for like an hour. And like apparently like on Saturday afternoons they show children's films, and then they'll show massive sporting events. But like whenever I meet someone from Perth, I always go, oh, North Bridge Piazza.
Do you know what
I call it TV Park.
Do you know what I did? I listened to In Excess and jogged
Oh my
water.
God. I'll never forget at my 16th birthday party I had at my house, stopping the party to demand who had stolen my Listen Like Thieves cassette.
Dude.
I loved In Excess.
I still love In
There's
Excess.
on New South Head Road, it's my favorite restaurant in Sydney. It's called Flavor of India.
Yeah.
And it's actually where Michael Hutchence had his last meal before he went and autoerotic asphyxiated himself. And for that reason, whenever I eat there, I never wear a belt. They have a coconut-encrusted shrimp there that is so good. The only answer would be to hang yourself afterwards.
Guys, I'm not getting better than that. Let's see. All right, I got to wrap this up.
Okay, one last thing.
Yeah, please.
And I sent you a message from Paris in December. Have you ever gone to the catacombs? These underground tunnels
I went to
that are full of cave skulls and
I went to the
bones.
Wait, do they have catacombs? I went to the catacombs. Where did I go to the catacombs, though? I went to the catacombs. I definitely went to the catacombs.
Okay.
But I did it with Travel Channel, so I was dead inside going, guys, we got to shoot in 15 minutes.
Okay, can I plug a couple things?
Please.
If you're listening in Paris, I'm at the Theatre de Louvre on January 29th.
Hey, if you're listening in Paris, just do me a favor. Go to the show, and then go up to Tom after the end and go, "Hey, the machine sent me." That's
Great.
how. Yeah, that's
Awesome.
how I can judge
Awesome.
how the list. But there was no question about it. Especially if you're living in Paris, you will love Tom Rhodes. There's no.
And I
question.
love Paris. I got a lot
Listen, if you're in Omaha, you're gonna love Tom Rhodes. But
the first love of my life was with a Parisian. First time I went to Paris, I was maced. I got a long history with Paris. I almost drowned at a French resort in Thailand. Anyway, I'll save that. That's all going to be on my next special. February 7th through the 10th, I'm at the Punchline in San Francisco, my favorite club on the planet
one of the best
Earth.
clubs in the entire world.
And February 22nd through 25th, I'm in your hometown, Tampa, at
really?
Side Splitters.
Are you going in to do Cowhead?
I don't know.
Yeah, you got to do Cowhead. I'll make sure. I'll reach out to him to make sure.
Great. Cool.
Yeah,
and then also I have a new album on iTunes called All Hail Laughter.
All right, I'll take that. I'll retweet that. I'm going to retweet your podcast you did about Charlie Chaplin.
Great.
And then
Genghis Khan.
Yeah, and then Genghis Khan.
Nice.
And dude, I wish we had longer.
I do too. I adore you. And one of my favorite things in the world is talking with you about travel.
So you're one of the I don't need to. I say this for the people listening, but from the day I started, you've been an influence of mine, like a huge influence of mine. And obviously, and I say this. 100% transparency, watching you go from the partying lifestyle to a guy who has not changed one bit and is literally living this like an out of jail life where you're doing these amazingly cool things, and I don't look at you like someone who's like craving the booze or the drugs to make it happen. You just seem like a guy who's just so fucking happy.
Yeah, I am.
traveling around on
I like the
Instagram.
out of jail metaphor. And
But it
before when I was
gives-
partying, a lot of my jokes were about partying. Now I think I'm bringing a lot more intelligence to what I'm doing and the stories that I want to tell. Talking about my travel experiences, talking about knowledge nuggets and things like that. So I think it's why ultimately I think I stopped drinking, because I knew it would make me a better comedian.
And I remember.
Not that anybody.
Yeah, I know.
Have your
Look,
full life. No, I mean, I busted my head open in Philadelphia. I blacked out and fell off of a bar stool. So, I mean, if you're drinking and you're partying, just stay out of Philadelphia.
Yeah. I'll be shooting my special in Philadelphia February 23rd.
Are you really?
24th, yeah.
Oh, shit.
At the Troc. So I will be drinking. I'm not going to that Mexican restaurant.
No, but I still love hanging out, and I don't have any problem with drinking or whatever.
Yeah, that's the beautiful
It's just
thing
my
about
own
you.
personal path in life. That's all I'm
If
on.
you're in Paris and you go see the show, fucking hang back, go have a cup of coffee with Tom, walk the streets a
I'll
little
hang
bit.
out while you're drinking.
Yeah.
I still like to hang out.
He's the best. And please tell your wife I said hello.
I will,
her.
and
She's fantastic.
I adore you, Bert.
I love you too, man. Thank you for doing this.
I love you, man.